In this video, we're going to consider the elicitation process itself. Once the experts had attended the 3-day meeting, each expert had a 4-hour session scheduled with 3 team members. One was there with familiarity about the project and all the features of the alternative plans. One team member was a biologist and had some intimate knowledge of the species of interest, and one was serving as a facilitator elicitor. So the 3 team members would meet with an expert, and they would begin by asking the questions that you've seen previously to fill out the tables that you're looking at right now. In the process of doing so, we would always begin by reviewing the read-ahead materials and explaining how the different elements of the plans work. This is the electronic barrier that you're looking at here. So it has an electric barrier and a fish entrainment mitigation. It has an engineered channel, a flushing lock, a physical barrier. All the features of this model would be reviewed, and the expert would be reminded that the non-structural measures would be in place. And so this was all in preparation for the elicitation of the values that you see here. In addition, as we went through each quantity, arrival to passage, one of the experts would review a bullet list of items that the teams of experts in their discussions had found significant to consider when estimating these values. And so each expert would spend several hours with the team. They had the opportunity to change their values at any time, and many did. After the elicitation was finished, a brief analysis was done using their data. So, for example, all the numbers are plugged in here, all the calculations are finished, and we were able to complete, let's see, we'll do a brief simulation here. We were able to complete some calculations using the expert's values, and then to feed those values back to the expert to make sure that they were values that the expert could accept and live with. So the experts were well aware of their opinions as they provided inputs, such as those I'm indicating now with the cursor, the colonization threshold and such, but they had no way of knowing what the probability of establishment would be because this was calculated using inputs that they provided. So, for example, a brief report would be fed back to each expert that in this case would say, using their inputs, we estimate the probability of establishment as being between about 18% and about 35%. The experts were provided with several such summaries of their inputs and how they yielded different calculated values, and then they were invited to comment on whether they could live with the values calculated from their inputs. Those that could not were provided the opportunity to amend their inputs, those seen back here, further, and they were provided with help in knowing what direction and which inputs would have to change to influence the probabilities that were calculated from their values. As we speak, the experts are reviewing those reports, so there's no way to know if or how many people would be inclined to amend their values. Once their values are completed, distributions like these will be combined into one overall distribution. So there is a file like this completed for each expert. We have the without condition, We have the non-structural condition, the electric barrier, barrier plus noise, lock closure, complex noise by itself, and a number of analyses that were done with all of these. For example, for this particular expert, we see this is the distribution of their estimates. The without condition probability is uncertain, but it ranges from about 17% to about 35%. You can see the lock closure is most effective. It has a much smaller probability of establishment, and that probability exists primarily because the measure cannot be implemented until 2021. But a number of summaries like this were provided back to the experts so that they could confirm their judgments or not.